Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Next in CCM, the podcast where we explore the evolving world of customer communication management and bring out for you the nuggets of insights on how innovation is reshaping the way enterprises connect with their customers. Today is another episode on data. Yes, a couple of weeks ago, we already did a solo episode on this topic, but some of you feedbacked us that it was not adequate. Data ingestion is at the very heart of CCM operations, but often overlooked. No CCM solution can deliver optimal results without efficient data ingestion, so it demands kind of a deeper coverage. That's totally correct. Thank you. We heard you, and that's why today we'll discuss it in more detail and with a domain expert. Meanwhile, there is a link to the past episode in the description, and you can listen to it after this episode if you want. Today, I have Sahil Riaz with me, the product manager for Varta by FCI. So let's jump into it. Sahil, today we are talking about data ingestion. You have a first-hand opportunity to observe the CCM operations of banks and insurance companies on a day-to-day basis. You know how most CCM arrangements, yes, I refrain from calling it a solution because a mesh of diverse applications is not exactly a modern solution.
It's absolutely not.
So when you think of CCM, what typically comes to mind?
Transaction alerts, loan offers, personalized recommendations. I mean, communications in general, right?
Exactly, but what powers all that communication?
It's data. And not just any data, but the ability to extract, process, and use it in real time.
So data ingestion is the critical first step of CCM operations. But Sahil, what happens if it is not done correctly? What are the challenges a business might face because of it?
We're talking about delayed OTPs, missed regulatory updates, generic marketing offers. The list goes on.
That's quite a handful. Let's break it down for our listeners.
Challenge number one is inflexibility. Most of the old CCM solutions can't handle diverse data formats. That means before starting the CCM operations, teams often have to first standardize data manually or using some other third party applications before it can even be ingested. And that's not a reliable method, there will be discrepancies.
That's a lot of wasted time and effort. Still, you can't guarantee 100% accuracy.
Forget 100% Tanmay, even 80% accuracy is a tall ask.
Any other problem?
Problem number two, compliance risks. Legacy systems often lack secure data handling and proper audit trails. This makes it harder to meet regulations like GDPR or PCI DSS.
I see. In a highly regulated sector like BFSI, a compliance breach can lead to hefty fines and headlines no company wants.
And the third one is roadblocks in real time communications. Slow data ingestion can create delays in sending out critical messages like fraud alerts or transaction notifications.
That's a major concern, Sahil.
Yes, and that brings us to the challenge number four, limited personalization. If you can't ingest real time data, how can you tailor your communications?
Then you're stuck sending generic messages. And in today's competitive market, that's a deal breaker, right?
Yes, Tanmay, let's crunch some numbers here. I know you love a good stat.
Sure.
Say a bank processes 50 million customer records a day, but 10% of those records fail to process on time due to system inefficiencies.
That's 5 million missed opportunities daily.
Multiply that over a year.
Billions in lost potential.
You got your maths, huh?
So, Sahil, what makes foolproof data ingestion such a daunting task? For large businesses, say a bank,
Look, Tanmay, financial institutions like banks handle mountains of data every single day. This includes customer transactions, KYC details, account information, payment records, regulatory updates. It's endless.
yeah, they are collected over a long span of time.
And this data isn't neatly organized in one place. It's scattered across legacy systems, CRMs, cloud platforms, third party sources, and even flat files.
Like CSV, XML, TXT, XLS.
Exactly. And databases are also varied, such as SQL, Oracle, MySQL, MongoDB, etc. And before you can use it, you got to extract it, transform it into a usable format, and then load it into your CCM system.
I get it. So, when that process isn't efficient, the ripple effects are huge.
Exactly, Tanmay.
Then, why do you think it is overlooked?
Well, I'm not sure if it's overlooked. You know what? There are two scenarios. First, some financial institutions still use clunky legacy CCM engines or arrangements, as you like to call them. They are not built for this purpose. Secondly, many banks are still using legacy CCM systems that struggle to handle today's data complexity.
Hmm. Sahil, I also think since such problems are at such a grassroots level, decision makers at large financial institutions like banks and insurance companies rarely get to know about it.
That's kind of true, Tanmay. That's why it tends to get overlooked.
Yeah, let's try to make this easy for our listeners. So, if you're a banking executive listening to this podcast and wondering whether your bank's CCM solution has a data ingestion problem or not, here are some signs to look for. Sahil, why don't you drop some hints?
Sure. 1. Frequent delays in delivering time sensitive messages.
Allow me to paraphrase that for our listeners. Do a consumer survey. Do your customers promptly receive OTPs, etc., at the time they need them? If they are not, then maybe your CCM engine needs a replacement.
2. Lukewarm revenue growth in upsell and cross sell.
That's because you are probably sending generic communications that fail to engage customers or drive results.
3. Compliance red flags.
Like missing audit trails or insecure data transfers.
Then 4 is teams spend too much time manually processing data instead of focusing on strategic tasks.
That's kind of self explanatory. This has been great, Sahil. You have explained it so succinctly. I'm sure our listeners are curious by now to know how you tackle this challenge.
Sure, Tanmay, I can recall how one of India's largest private banks has seen astounding results by transforming their data ingestion game for CCM operations.
That's fantastic. We all would love to hear that. But can we park the case study for a minute? Before that, why don't you explain the best practices first? The technical bit.
Sure. If you are a CTO, CDO, or a CEO of a bank, the good news is this doesn't necessarily have to be your reality. Modern ETL solutions are transforming the way data is ingested, processed, and delivered in CCM systems. It's about the efficient use of ETL.
Sahil, allow me a second to explain for our listeners who might not be familiar. ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. It's the process of pulling data from various sources, cleaning and formatting it, and then loading it into a system for use.
Think of it as prepping ingredients for a recipe. You can't cook if your ingredients aren't ready.
Super.
And modern ETL solutions are like master chefs. They handle everything efficiently, no matter how complex the recipe. They can process data in real time, support hybrid environments, and apply custom business rules to ensure data quality.
You explained it beautifully with a cooking metaphor. Does Varta also employ the technique?
Yes, Varta is designed to solve every challenge we've talked about today and more. Recently, a bank which deployed Varta saw.
Whenever I talk to you, Sahil, you have a real world success story, a clear sign that Varta is going places.
Yes, Tanmay, it is. You see, today we work with most of the leading banks and insurance companies in India and also some in the Middle East and the United States.
That reminds me, you were about to tell us the story of how India's largest private bank managed to drive value from efficient data ingestion. Why don't you spill the beans for our listeners now?
We're talking about one of India's largest private sector banks.
How large was their database?
They have a customer base of nearly 25 million. So you can imagine
That's huge.
they had their data stored in various systems like SQL, Oracle, MongoDB in various formats, CSV, XML, TXT, XLS, and so on.
I see. And what were their pain points?
They were struggling with delays in data processing, which caused communication bottlenecks and compliance risks. Their biggest pain point was real time data. They couldn't personalize interactions because their systems were too slow.
So, what difference did Varta make and how?
Varta, works seamlessly across on premises or in the cloud. It extracts data directly from internal databases while keeping sensitive information on clients' servers. Then it retrieves and formats data via REST API calls And after that, it does three things. First, merges data from disparate sources using customer ID. Second, curates it per business rules. And third, stores it in a common interim storage layer. It breaks down large data sets for parallel processing, ensuring faster communication delivery.
That's brilliant. It is a complex process and quite geeky, I believe. Dear listeners, if you are keen to explore at length, we can do another episode on this. Do write to us. So, Sahil, what was the result?
Varta's advanced features like data chunking, encryption, and parallel processing help them achieve 3x faster data processing, 40% fewer communication delays,
And customer engagement?
increased by 25%.
That's the power of efficient data ingestion.
Yeah, that's why we call Varta tomorrow's CCM engine built today.
Yeah, Varta takes pride in driving tangible business value, going beyond just communication development and delivery.
That's the secret sauce to Varta's growth.
You're an out and out foodie, I see. You just can't get over your obsession with food and recipes. So, Sahil, let's get to the closing thoughts. What's the big takeaway for our listeners today?
It's simple. Data is the new oil. If your CCM system isn't powered by efficient data ingestion, you're leaving money, time, and customer trust on the table.
This doesn't have to be you because solutions like Varta exist to turn this around.
And it's not just about fixing a problem, it's about creating an advantage, being faster, smarter, and more customer focused than your competition.
Thanks, Sahil. Thank you, listeners, for joining us today. Hope you found this useful. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Next in CCM podcast for more insights on how to stay ahead in the world of customer communications. Until the next episode, keep innovating.
This podcast is brought to you by FCI CCM, a premier provider of omni-channel, hyper-personalized customer communications management solutions across industries.